They are scheduled.
Hello Art Family, and thanks to all the new subscribers. For this demo, I wanted to take a minute and talk about sketching a movable object, something that is always a pain to try to chase after and keep after, especially when you're already having to deal with the struggle of the light constantly changing and the people constantly moving by. Probably one of the more complicated things to try to track down when you're sketching on location, painting plein air somewhere, is cars. I feel like every time I go to do cars in a sketch, the moment I start drawing them is the moment someone leaves the cafe, jumps in the car, and takes off down the road. So for this demo, I'm doing a plein air painting in Red Hook, New York, at the historic diner there. You've probably seen it on James Gurney's channel. I know he's painted it a number of times. I wanted to start out by doing a wash over the whole page, so I got it all wet so that all my initial layers would be very soft to help subdue them and push them further back. I'm going for the most simple value idea I can possibly put down, and I did a small kind of business card sketch beforehand using just the pencil to arrange the scene that I was looking at into 3 to 4 basic values before I get started. And that may not be directly what we're talking about in this video, but it has a lot to do with it, because that's what it all kind of comes down to for me, is boiling things down into the most simple set of values. It can be difficult with cars because our brain has this odd kind of intuitive relationship to things like cars where since childhood, well, since birth, we sort of, in order to navigate the complexity of reality and how kind of crazy everything is, we develop a system, and we're taught a system of symbols and icons that help us to navigate reality. And cars are especially bad about this. Eyes and portraits, trees, houses. There's a moment in the 1/100th of a second it takes to look from the object you're looking at to the paper that you're drawing on, where your brain goes into a kind of autopilot and goes, I think I know what a car looks like, I'll take it from here. So you'll start to draw this sort of symbol for a car, the kind of classic box, like a child's toy of a car. A little box with 2 wheels on it or 4 wheels on it. And it doesn't quite look right. It doesn't quite match reality. So when we're painting, what we have to do is kind of undo that a little bit. And I've heard some painters describe it as act like you don't know what the object is that you're sketching. Try to remove yourself from the context and the previous experience and understanding of what the object is, and just chase the value. So to me, when I look at a car, what I try to do, as I do with the whole image, is I close one eye and I squint at it, and I just ask myself what the simple value is. I think a good tip for working on cars is to draw with pen in a sketchbook and just draw cars from observation when you're sitting in a parking lot or a park with your kids. Just develop a kind of understanding of the contours and the various shapes that you could see. But when it comes to actually painting the cars, I close one eye and I squint. I get rid of the detail and I focus on the value. What's the dark shapes that I'm seeing? Oftentimes, it is the windshield, the tires, the underside of the car, and the cast shadow create a kind of dark value. And the rest of the car typically has planes. Essentially, they're just cubes in 3-dimensional space in either a 1-point or 2-point perspective. And speaking of what I was talking about earlier, you can see right when I start to put the paint on this Jeep, the Jeep drives away. It's like a curse. It happens all the time. But I wasn't worried about it because I got my value idea down. I got my cubes in their location that I wanted them. And what I did is I took a little bit of time and I just established what the light and what the value was doing on these cubes in 3-dimensional space. So as a cube, they have a top side plane that's going to be hit with the most light. We have the side walls, which are hit with warm light from the light hitting the ground and bouncing back up, reflecting some of that kind of concrete and asphalt up into the side planes of the car. And then we have the darker bits of value. From there, I can start to subdivide some of the smaller shapes that I'm seeing, within the wheel well and the headlights. But since all these cars are moving and coming and going, once I establish the simple shapes that I have now, I can come back and glaze a local color over them and adjust them as I need them, but essentially the value idea is there, and that's all I'm really chasing after. Similar to figures, it's all about value and context. You don't necessarily have to have a laser accurate printout of what the object is. Now, I've developed over a lot of practice a sensibility for the contours of these things. Essentially, it's all drawing, and I have a lot of practice drawing. But it's all about value set in context. Once I have the simple arrangement of values nested in here with the building and the flat plane of the road, I'm giving the viewer both A and C, and their brain can kind of fill in the gap of B and create a sensibility for what this is, whether it's a person or a car in this case. It's all about this simple arrangement of value in context. If I had to sum up some advice for people who are frustrated with cars or wanting to work on cars, I would say practice the cars by themselves outside of the context of a picture. And if you're new to watercolor painting or plein air painting in general, there's nothing wrong with just snagging a picture and working from the photo as needed, and that works for people too. If you happen to see people sitting in a cafe, they're constantly getting up and leaving as well, and there's nothing wrong with taking a picture here and there as you develop the skill of being able to do it in the moment on location. I also like to practice drawing cars just from observation directly using a pen and no eraser, because it forces you to use the lines that you put down and not think of them as mistakes, but as an attribute of the drawing. So you end up with a lot of wonky looking cars, but it helps you to abandon the attachment to a perfect drawing. The goal is to see it all as drawing, I think. Every step along the way is drawing. I'm always constantly thinking of the negative space as a means of drawing the positive space of an object. So you're always drawing. And my main key advice is just go easy on yourself, because it's very difficult to paint things on location, especially as they're moving and the light's changing. And think of it more like a fishing trip. Just try to glean one positive thing out of an experience. It can be a right color or a right angle that you got right. Just go for one thing, and that's a successful day. That's it for this demo. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, happy sketching.